to go back to when I did the book. I'm continuing this tape. Um, I'm Margaret Ann Windsor, and I'm going to explain that real quick. This is tape 2, and my father's Edward the Eighth, and this is my father, and this is the double, the imposter that married Wallace Simpson, and this is me, an old photo, and my sons, and this is my aunt Georgia O'Keeffe. Claudia O'Keeffe's my mom, was married to my father, and the whole thing was a lie about Wallace Simpson and all of it, to take him down by my uncle, the Kennedys, Roosevelt, and the New World Order, the Rockefellers and Rothschilds. So this is my uncle, the illegal monarch, George VI, Elizabeth's father, planning my kidnapping in '39 with the Roosevelts. I was born in '39 and kidnapped in '41. So come a long way. Look at the life they stole. They should be in prison. Anyway, I want to get back to when I did the book. My ex-husband, I later found out worked for the CIA, and I don't know who else. He worked for defense contractors and everything. And it was meant that I married him. I didn't know my real name when I finished high school, and I look back now, and my husband, or ex-husband, always knew. He left, like Hansel and Gretel, little clues along the way. And I look back at it now when I found out my real name, and the antifreeze was put in me and all the things that happened. He always knew he was meant to marry me, and that's what happened. He was a psychopath. Now that I'm going to jump to, we had supposedly divorced in '73, and I was having so much trouble when I was doing the book, and I thought it was the book that was causing the problems and causing my children a lot of pain and grief and scaring us to death, and me too, torturing me to death. And I remember a friend of mine, probably the one friend I had, I guess, told me, why don't you let John, my ex-husband, come back, like protecting us. So I had moved from Moonraker into Laurelwood apartments up the street, and I had already signed the lease, the down payment, and everything. I went up there and took my ex-husband, and I was telling her that we were having some problems. She already knew I was doing the book. And I said, can he come back and stay with us for a while, like a form of protection? So there was never any misunderstanding about it, his being there. He wasn't on the lease or anything. And I got the letter from the FBI that June the 23rd, that's May, that 1st of May, I signed the lease, and then my ex-husband comes back a little later to stay with us. And I never thought that, well, I won't say that. I always wondered if he wouldn't. I didn't know why, but I always wondered if he wouldn't kill me and the boys, my sons, his sons. But anyway, I got a letter from the FBI, the U.S. Attorney Harper's office, and during that time, so much was happening. I was trying to get the book published, and thinking, well, if I could get it published, that and going to the law in Cobb County, I want to bring that back. The Atlanta Journal, I went to them. I went to the medical board. It was a joke. I went to them with the letter from the FBI, and then they would say, well, that disappeared. You can't believe it. The Atlanta Journal was the one I went to so much, and they knew, well, that's Cox, yeah, owned by Cox. But anyway, I'm getting away from it. My ex-husband, I would go into the apartment. This is just one of the things other than sugar being put in the lifters in my son's car and stopping on the highway at 11 o'clock at night on the interstate. And then where he worked one night, a friend of mine that managed it was gunned down by, as he walked out of the, and they got the man, but That was weird. If it wasn't mind control, I don't know what was used in it. Anyway, it's terrorizing my children because they're associating this too. They know a degree of what's going on. And I look back and I think, my God, it could have been my son they killed instead of Roger Thackett was his name at Tentacle on Delt Road there. And that was in 79 he was shot and killed. Just a minute before the cops drove up. But anyway, my ex-husband kept saying to me, why don't we move into one of the apartments? It's in the same complex, Laurelwood. I didn't like them. I looked at it. It was like about, I don't know, it was a little bit like up on the hill and same complex and all, but they were older. And I think, anyway, I noticed the odor and smell made me sick when I'd go through it. So I had wanted no part of it. I didn't see the point in moving anyway. And the thing that I noticed was the manager told me that she said, you know, my I can't remember if she said uncle or her uncle's nephew. I can't remember. It was close family. Her uncle was in charge of he was FBI in charge of the Patty Hearst kidnapping. So I remembered that, and I thought, well, what's she telling me this for? And here I've gone to the FBI and got a letter from them about an ongoing investigation and all this. Well, I left on, around the mid-March of 80, going out to John's sister, Laura, out in Texas, who was going to let me live in her home and see if I could find a job. And if I could, I would get an apartment and move the boys out there, was the plan. But she lived at that time in a small town, Albuquerque, not Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's, right at the moment I can't think of it. It's north of Dallas. Anyway, and small and old oil town. But anyway, not much chances of getting a job. But I left going out there in hopes I could get the boys away, and I thought it was because of the book. I realize now I couldn't have gotten away from anyone saying it's my name and who the kids are and me, and who did all this to us. So I called her just before I left, and I'm leaving out all the hell that went on during that time. I mean, it was scary. It was horrifying torture. And I called Laura, his sister, and all was well. I'm okay to come and live, and she'll help me look for a job for a period of a few weeks. Well, when I got to Mesquite, outside Dallas, I called her, and I was low on money, almost none. And suddenly, I called her and I said, well, I'm here. I'm on my way on in. Her whole attitude had changed, and she says, you can't come here. She says, you're not coming here. So I was shocked, and I turned around, and my car had been vandalized, and I didn't know if it would make it back, and I didn't have the money to have it fixed. Anyway, I went back, and I'm going to skip the Marshall Carnwright was a security person. I thought he owned a security agency. Actually, my ex-husband had introduced me. Come to find out later, and all this, I stayed in his home with him and his wife in Cobb County. And I looked up, just for a couple of nights, I was homeless, and looked up at a picture on the wall, and it said Marshall, Oklahoma Territory. And I remember I asked his wife, I said, was he a U.S. Marshal? And she said, yeah, that's his picture. She said, but he retired. Well, if you get into all this, you find out that FBI and all these agencies really, I don't know if they really retire or not, but they'll call them back in for service, and they usually go back if they're needed. But anyway, that was Marshall Carnwright, and I stopped by his office on the way back from Texas. I was so tired I had to drive, and I got back, and my husband has suddenly While I was gone, the few days I was gone, they had let him at Laurelwood move my furniture into the apartment up that he tried to get me to move into, and I had refused. They had let him sign a new lease. It's got my apartment. I have no apartment, and they won't give me a key. And that's when everything went bizarre. I mean, I really was in hell. And my sons, I'm terrified they're going to get hurt. And I know my ex-husband has got something to do with it. Now, how obvious can you be? I remember one of my sons said, Mom, I think you should know that while you were gone, Dad put you on his medical insurance. And so my sons even knew or felt that something was all wrong. And I was so sick I went to someone that I thought was kind of a friend, Lois Pearson, in Marietta to spend the night. Well, I woke up the next morning and I had antifreeze in me. And I didn't know what had been given me, but I knew I was about dead. I mean, you got to know, if anybody's ever been through it, you know you're going to die. And the hell your brain is baked. And so I'm going to leave out this part of where I went and what happened. Everything illegally. I was illegally locked up. I simply went to West Paces Ferry for a talk screen to see what had been given me, so to neutralize it if possible. I got illegally locked up, and I was later told that the doctor there at the emergency room wasn't even on their staff, so therefore they're blameless. How about this? Everyone should live through what I lived through there. And then transported by an ex-husband who suddenly reappears. And then the next day, which is the day before Easter, April the 5th, I'm transported by the woman. I'm shoved in her car and illegally taken to Alabama. And she puts me in a Crestwood, which is a hospital, but it's got a mental ward. And I was put on the mental ward. She tells them, well, she just brought me across the state line, and my husband. She's saying my husband. So they're using the mental health and lying. The court's totally out of it. I couldn't have talked anyway. I was in such my brain's baked. I'm scared for my children. And, I could go on with this because they've used the mental health system. I'll say this, that after I left the DA's office, I finally got out of Crestwood, and that was hell. That's the story of what went on in there. I finally got out. I passed a background check for Patterson Sheriff's Office because that was required to go to work for Fred Simpson, the Madison County District Attorney in Huntsville. So I worked there, and then I worked for Doelle Duke and, don't let me forget her name. Oh, gosh. Anyway, they were CIA, but they'd opened up this Golden Triangle. Well, that's when I heard my ex-husband, come through the door, and I only saw him a few times, and I couldn't get my apartment back. Quite frankly, he terrorized me. I knew he was a part of it. I didn't know what was going to happen to my sons. This woman's trying to get me killed, and I didn't know. I was always told she was my mother, but I hated her. She was mean. And then to find out later she killed her twins, so she wanted me dead because if it was found out that she killed her twins, then that's the gas chamber in Alabama. So the family were told to keep quiet about it when I was brought there as a baby, or 2 years old. So that's one of the reasons, other than she was a psychopath. I had a Dr. Kenneth Reagan tell me, a good guy, he says, I don't think I've ever seen a person like you that's surrounded by their life is controlled by three psychopaths. He named them. One was my ex-husband, John, Lina Dempsey, and the other one is the one that I have told about, and I'm not going to mention it here. I hope it's all told. I really do. But now I go to work for the DA, and I'm trying to tell about the mind control murders because they never stopped. They fit into patterns. And the Wayne Williams. And I even, when I was working at Clarice Metters was her name, and they were former CIA, and I guess she asked me one time while I worked there, she says, do you want us to help you? And I remember my ex-husband, I started to tell that,